Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another spine-tickling edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party!
Monster Party.
I'm excited, Matt.
I'm excited, too. Yes, because we have a wonderful, wonderful show.
We do.
Indeed. But before we get into that, let us introduce ourselves.
Who are you, sir?
I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James GONIS.
And the topic for our show this time is a particular favorite of mine, and I'm so happy that our guest recommended it.
Yeah.
Horror anthologies.
Horror anthologies.
Cool.
Horror anthologies. Now, just really quickly, Matt, what is your definition of a horror anthology?
Okay.
Because I know when we talked about that, I think I got something wrong here.
Well, no, I realize there might be some sort of differing opinions, but when I hear horror anthology, I think of a movie that is comprised of 5 different stories, maybe 4.
Got it.
Sometimes 3.
Sometimes 3.
Even just
7.
2.
Or 7. Yeah. Or in some cases, 26 or,
And we have a great guest.
Yes, we do. We have a great guest. And he is a new friend to Monster Party.
Yes, he is.
And we already love him. We already love him.
We do.
You've seen him on Comedy Central. He has a great special. You've seen him on Better Call Saul.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
That's
right. He is the unethical veterinarian. My favorite kind of veterinarian.
Which he plays so well.
He does play it so well. Great actor and author. Yeah. Oh, my God. What haven't you done? Ladies and gentlemen, JOE DeRosa.
JOE DeRosa!
Thanks for... Thank you for having me,
Joe.
guys.
Thanks for being with us, man.
Awesome. I'm thrilled. I feel like we're like instant best friends.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've never met any of you before I walked in the door today, and within 5 minutes, I was like, I have to bring several of my other friends over.
Get them now. Call them now. Yeah.
And we all love horror anthologies.
I want to have you guys over to my house and so we can all get wasted one day.
Yeah. Awesome.
Watching some horror anthologies.
I like the cut of your jib, Mr. DeRosa.
Yeah, why not, man?
Yeah, let's make that happen.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, our conversation was so organic when I walked through the door about. What did we start with? the Prometheus?
We got Prometheus, James Cameron,
The Avengers,
George Lucas,
John Carpenter.
Hey, we don't mess around.
The Thing prequel.
And that was within 7 minutes.
That was like 7 minutes. Yeah.
But now here we are on Monster Party.
And now my head is lying in your lap, and it's just like we've been friends forever.
And
no, I swear to God, I was like, this is the kind of girl I have to meet.
She's taken.
That was my first thought. I was like, I got to meet a girl that I can talk to about shit like that.
Right.
Isn't it great when you talk to someone about horror anthologies?
It's the great.
Oh, okay, hey, ease up.
No.
Speedy Gonzalez.
No, listen.
We're getting to know our guest.
No, I know.
Jesus
I know,
Christ.
but I'm like so excited. There's so much to talk about. There really, really is.
I'm
I mean, the funny thing is, I started to do this research, and I started to go. Let's start to list all the ones that I had seen before. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
okay. All right, Larry.
No.
Larry,
No.
Start us off. What do you got? What's your first one?
I wanted to ask Joe about one of his favorite horror anthologies.
Perfect.
Well, I will go TV series and movie.
You can mix it up.
Yeah. And my favorite horror anthology movie series is my favorite horror series ever, which is Creepshow.
Okay.
Interesting.
And I don't count Creepshow 3 because Romero and King had nothing to do with it.
I never saw it. That came out like way later.
That wasn't even a movie. That was a play, right? That wasn't.
It looks like they shot it on an iPhone. It's like terrible.
Wow.
We're talking about Creepshow, the movie that was what was
Creepshow
that?
was 82.
82. The magical year of 82.
Yeah. And the trio behind Creepshow is Tom Savini, George A. Romero, and Stephen King.
Yeah.
And then they have said in interviews variously that Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, is essentially Creepshow Part 3. It was
And I like Tales from the Dark Side.
I do like that movie
too a lot.
Yeah.
arguably the best of the 3
It's
movies.
really good. Yeah.
So that's my favorite. That's my favorite art anthology movie and favorite horror movie series.
Right.
But TV Twilight Zone's my favorite thing ever that's ever been on television, which I know isn't totally horror, but there's
a lot of horror.
It leans
sci-fi.
plenty horror.
But
it's to me that nothing will ever be better than that show ever. I have literally every episode of it ever, including all the Forrest Whitaker.
Oh wow!
Okay,
That's the second remake series because they brought back in the early 80s.
Yeah, it's the
and then
the 80s one isn't bad.
Wait, you're talking about 82? But see, it had some cool stuff about it. An element that I liked about it is, it started out with it kind of had that you had the kind of introduction of the two characters in the van, right?
Oh, no, you're talking about the movie.
Yeah, I am talking about the movie.
He's talking about the TV series.
Well, I was talking about the movie.
There's the movie too.
Yeah,
but the movie too. Yeah,
that's a whole different set of problems.
I think.
No, Matt, that was really cool though, because once they did that, then you got into the whole comic book thing. Remember the little animated cartoon stuff?
Look,
no, in the movie,
they
don't do. No, that's not in the movie.
You're all wasted on the booze.
Oh my God, I am.
But
oh my God,
here's the cool part. Now, I think Twilight Zone the movie, although I enjoy it.
Wait, we're talking about Twilight Zone the movie?
Yeah.
Look,
I was talking about Creepshow the movie.
Are you trying to drive him mad?
But the van is the two guys in the car is Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone. Yes.
Yeah. Which do you want to talk about?
No, whichever one you want to do.
Whatever.
Joe, please continue.
Okay. The Twilight Zone the movie, which I don't think is a great take on the Twilight Zone, although it's a pretty fun movie.
It's all right.
Like a pretty senseless fun horror movie.
It has moments.
Yeah.
Nice poster.
Nice poster. They break a lot of Twilight Zone rules that I don't care for. But my favorite thing about the movie is Rod Serling was dead before they made it, so they weren't able to have him do the intro voiceover thing. Right. So when Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks are in the car, the episode they talk about the most is the Burgess Meredith episode of the Twilight Zone.
Right. Time enough at last.
Yeah. And or one of the Burgess Meredith episodes, and then when the camera pans up, it's Burgess Meredith doing the narration, and
that's right.
That's great.
That's right.
Really good stuff.
Yeah, that's really great.
And also that the movie was scored by Jerry Goldsmith, who had scored a lot of the episodes.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
Do you want to hear something heartbreaking?
Yeah.
My prized possession was an original from 1982 Twilight Zone movie poster that was signed by John Landis, Joe Dante, and Richard Matheson, which was and when I moved out here, the box that and several other monetarily significant paintings was lost by the movie.
Oh no, that's horrible!
Bastards.
I mean, I have the poster myself. I don't have it signed by all those guys.
To me, it was Matheson.
Yeah,
that was it because Matheson.
He was the greatest.
Next to Serling, to me, was the best Twilight Zone writer.
Well, and Charles Beaumont.
Beaumont too.
Yes.
And Matheson's stories have been turned. They did Matheson stuff on Tales from the Dark Side and
Trilogy of Terror.
And those amazing movies too. Yeah.
Dead of Night.
Dead of Night. Yeah. The second Dead of Night.
Second Dead of Night.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
What about? Okay, I haven't seen that one. I saw the first one.
Dead of Night, the 77 one, was kind of like a TV movie anthology follow-up to Trilogy of Terror. And it featured two, kind of like Trilogy of Terror. The first two stories were okay, but the third one was very scary with Joan Hackett terrified by this kind of like demon child. It's great.
Which represented her oncoming age. Is that?
Yeah, but it was really good.
Bobby?
Yes, Bobby.
She's like a mom whose son died.
It's a great idea. It's like she does this like black mass ritual to bring him back, but then you find out and he comes back. It's like, oh, mommy, did you love me? Yes, of course I loved you, Bobby. Yeah, but mommy, did you really? And like you find out like he supposedly like fell off a cliff and died, but no, he killed himself because he was trying to get away from her because she like abused him.
Whoa.
So at the end,
that's heavy.
I don't give this away, but at the end it's like, so Bobby didn't want to come back, mommy, so he sent me instead. And then you see his little demon.
Oh my God, that sounds
changeling
great.
creature thing, and it's great.
That's
it's
great.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good.
Speaking of Matheson anthologies, a lot of his short stories were collected in a paperback series called Shock 1, Shock.
That's right. I have many of those.
And they are some of the greatest horror short stories you can read.
Yeah.
They are.
Many of them were adapted, like the Trilogy of Terror ones.
Yeah, his writing lends itself so well to the anthology format.
Yeah. His anthology, like his short story books, are really great. I have the box, and it's it's just a great read. And what I like about him versus I'm a big Harlan Ellison fan too, but what I like more about, I feel like Matheson sort of rides the fence between King and Ellison. King is very obviously horror based, and it's always very sort of salt of the earth, sort of shoot from the hip kind of characters and stuff like that.
Right.
Ellison is way more, it's very poetic writing. Ellison is truly like a writer.
Yeah.
And the stories, therefore, can sort of go on for a very long time.
Yes, they can. Yeah.
Right.
Which is fine, but I like Matheson because it's like, Well, we're running out in 6 pages. We got a nice twist at the end.
You're right. Yeah,
I'm going to go to bed. Yeah.
There's a lack of pretentiousness with Matheson. He's just a masterful storyteller.
Yeah, he's
that
like, here you
gets
go.
the job done.
Yeah. So I like that. And I'm also not the greatest reader in the world. So sometimes I'm reading Ellison stuff, and I start getting lost in like the figurative language and everything.
Right.
I'm just like, and I have to kind of keep, and I'm like, what the fuck is he? You know. So, which is my fault, not his.
He writes beautifully.
Yeah, he does.
It is beautiful.
But Creepshow is among your favorites?
Creepshow is my favorite horror movie series ever, and my favorite anthology horror movie ever.
And that's the one that has the little animated cartoon, right?
That does have the animated cartoons.
That's what I was talking about.
The second one is cartoons. Right. The first one is comic book pages.
Comic book pages.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
I don't know. I have some problems with that movie. It's more stylistic choices. To me, a lot of the things that they do with the intense lighting and the reds coming from the side.
But it's like comic book.
Well,
they do that with Dick Tracy. It's like
hey, you know what? I will argue it's a choice, and if you like that choice, it's great. But for me, it's too much.
No, I understand.
I prefer it to be more realistic. Say a movie like The Amicus, Tales from the Crypt, where everything is shot really scary.
Or like with the movie Dick Tracy, everything is that kind of color. I see what you're saying, because like in those episodes, what happens is it's actually kind of like natural light and stuff at first, and then when you get to the spooky part, then it throws in that harsh colors.
And
I got it.
I give it credit for trying that and for being consistent with it. It doesn't just do it for one segment; it does it through the whole thing. And I get it. It's just, for me, that choice would pull me out of it.
That might be my favorite aspect of the movie, because
there you go.
It sets it apart. It's like how the old, people will make fun of that 60s Batman show and say it's campy, and I think it's brilliant because the BAMs on the screen and the crazy camera angles, it looks like you're watching a beautiful comic book.
Right. Yeah. It's created its own world.
So so that's what I was actually upset in Creepshow 2 that I love Creepshow 2, but I was upset they didn't do that in Creepshow. They don't do it at all in Creepshow 2.
Yeah.
And there's instead of comic book sequences in between, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
And it's still cool, but I just really thought
I like
it really nailed
but it is scarier. I think Creepshow 2 is scarier.
Well, really more than that.
The raft segment.
The raft is a great one. The raft is great.
It's a really scary story.
Now, that's in
is.
Creepshow 2.
Yeah.
Creepshow 2.
But for Creepshow 1 thing, I don't want to go on about film music all the time, but John Harrison's score is fantastic.
It's great.
He has a great score, actually.
And there's a great creature in it, too. There's a great little monster. That's like my
and
favorite.
The
crate. I love that one.
I don't hate the movie or anything like that, because I am entertained by it. Like the crate especially tickles me to no end.
Yeah.
Like every element of that, with Adrienne Barbeau as the shrewish wife. And
the greatest at playing
she's
that
so good. Yeah. And I love that creature.
It's funny when I'm watching Adrienne Barbeau, and I like her. I like her so much, and I when I watch it, I go, "You're not really that mean."
Yeah.
I really.
But you know what though? You and I have different tastes in women.
I remember her in Swamp Thing, which she was lovely.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what I'm. That's what I.
It's also about Hal Holbrook and Fritz Weaver just kind of being miserable.
Yeah. I want a woman that will ruin me.
Don't we all?
Though, I have to admit, though,
I'm still waiting.
Most people talk about the first Creepshow. They talk about Father's Day with the corpse, and they talk about the crate. My favorite 2 segments, actually, are the Leslie Nielsen one.
That is a good one.
That is a good one.
That has Ted Danson
It's really
in it.
funny, and he's great. And
it is good.
Nielsen is great.
That's a great one, too.
And the one with at the end, with the roaches. Those are 2 of the best.
I forgot about that one.
They're both great, and also you mentioned Fritz Weaver, which is another. He's another Twilight Zone alumni.
Right. Yeah.
Which is great that he's in Creepshow to me, but the Leslie Nielsen one, I agree, is fantastic.
It's well written, it's well acted,
and he makes such. It's testament to how great Leslie Nielsen is as an actor. He makes such an interesting choice at the end when Ted Danson and the girl are the zombie swamp people, whatever, and they're coming in. He starts laughing.
Yes.
That's
right.
Because he can't believe it's happening.
Well, it's like the mummy. It's like the guy laughing when he sees the mummy. And
The irony of this is how he ends his life.
Yeah.
And the girl, Galen Ross, is like the only other thing than Dawn of the Dead that she was
from Dawn
in.
of the Dead. That's right. No, she was in Mad Men.
You would know.
Yeah. No, you can't stump this guy.
No, can't stump him.
He's amazing.
My favorite story in the movie, and it's the reason that the Cronenberg version of The Fly is one of my favorite horror movies.
That's a great movie.
Is The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill, where Stephen King is slowly turning into the plant.
You like that one?
It terrifies me. It's
Really?
Not really my favorite. No.
The idea of something taking your body over is so scary to me.
I couldn't get past it. Oh, well, look what's happening to me. And I couldn't get past that. To me, it was like
good impersonation.
Stephen King trying to do his little acting thing.
I'm sorry. It borders on an earnest movie.
Yes,
but that's what's great about it.
Joe, I couldn't take it seriously. That's the thing. I was irritated. I'm like, why are you wasting my time?
I want you to rewatch it. I want you to rewatch it.
I have to rewatch
but I want you to. I don't remember the name of the
artist. Close my eyes at that point.
But think about the think about the artist. Whatever artist used to draw for the original Tales from the Crypt EC comics.
Yeah.
And he drew everybody with like the sort of skinny neck and the really pronounced jaws.
Was it Jack Davis?
I think it might have been Jack Davis.
Maybe.
But rewatch it with that artist in mind, and suddenly it makes total sense. And it's funny, like the close-ups of the doctor being like, "Well, I have to amputate," and he's like enjoying the fact he's going to cut his fingers off.
Right.
It's supposed to be like goofy, but then it ends with him blowing his head off.
I know.
It is also kind of Lovecraftian. It's a little bit like Color Out of Space, where like the fungus takes over the.
Have you read? You've read the comic then, right? Because there's a Bernie Wrightson comic that
of Creepshow.
Yeah,
my friend has the only copy I've ever seen of it, and I've read it at his house. Like while I'm
I can find that for you.
Taking a crap.
No, that's and it works. It works very well as a comic.
Yeah, it does. They did a really good job, man, you know. But can I say one more favorite anthology?
Yes.
Please.
Yes. I mean, we're here for a little bit, so.
Tales, even though Twilight Zone, as I said, is my favorite TV show of all time, my favorite episode ever of any television ever is the Cutting Cards episode of Tales from the Crypt.
The TV show.
Episode with Rex.
I'm not Rex.
Please
I'm not
describe.
Yeah, because I don't know that one, Joe.
It's the guy.
Not Rex Smith.
It's Bishop from fucking. Who plays Bishop in
Lance Hendrickson?
Lance Hendrickson, yeah.
It's Lance Hendrickson, who plays a guy named Reno Crevice, and he's like this.
I think I already love this.
Great name.
Go ahead.
And he's this this cowboy gambler guy, and he's got an arch rival.
Kevin Teig from Emergency.
Yeah, exactly. And Kevin Teig plays this guy named Sam Forney, and they're these
Sam Forney.
Yeah, they're these gambling rivals. Mm-hmm. And Reno Crevice comes back to town, and he runs into Sam Forney, and it's that whole scene of like, you again, you know,
right?
And they're going back and forth and working each other up, and then they start gambling about who's going to get out of town permanently because they hate each other.
Yeah,
and they're the two best gamblers, and they square off first at craps, and they tie, or they're just rolling dice, and they tie. Then they do Russian roulette. And then that doesn't work out. And then they go into chop poker, which is why it's called cutting cards, where if you lose the hand, you get a finger cut off.
No.
And I think it's loosely based on if you ever saw Four Rooms, the last story in Four Rooms is the Tarantino story about the guy where he gets his finger cut off that's based on the old Hitchcock short.
Okay.
I can't remember the details of either.
Yeah, wasn't
of
it
those.
like a Tales of the Unexpected, too?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a running theme.
No, right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's Hitchcock, where at the
Fingers
end you
getting
see somebody
cut
else
off.
didn't have a thumb.
It's the lighter. It's in the Hitchcock thing and the Four Rooms thing. It's they have to light the lighter like 10 times in a row.
Right.
Or something,
That's
or
it.
they'll
Right.
Cut their thumb off.
Right.
Someday, Circus will be that.
My friend James Pinkstone and I wrote a screenplay together, a horror anthology screenplay together, and one of the stories in it takes place between two characters. It's a guy. It's a sort of Howard Hughes type, and a reporter. And the Howard Hughes type is giving his sort of last will and testament story to this reporter and he explains, "I've sold my soul to the devil, and tonight he's coming to collect," and whatever. He's trying to convince this reporter to document the whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, that two-man concept was based completely on the fact that I loved Cutting Cards so much because it's the two of these guys the whole time. And it's riveting. There's also a Tales from the Dark Side with Danny Aiello and Tom, the guy from Easy Money. Did you ever see Easy Money?
Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah. Did you ever see Heat? Oh, House of the Devil. I'll keep it on horror.
Yeah.
Remember House of the Devil? The guy that plays the dad that hires the girl to babysit? Tom Noonan. Tom Noonan.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, from Manhunter.
Yes,
right.
yeah. So it's Danny Aiello and Tom Noonan in this episode of Tales from the Dark Side. It's actually the first episode of the season 1. And it's fucking phenomenal. And it's just the two of them in this bar the whole show. That's it. And I met Danny Aiello once, like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Like Gotham Comedy Club, and he was downstairs. I go, can you guys bring me down and introduce me to Danny Aiello? They brought me down. I go, hey man, I got to tell you, dude, I'm such a huge fan of. And he goes, what? Do the Right Thing? I go, no, that's great. But your episode of Tales from the Dark Side is amazing. And I swear to God, he goes, oh, we got an aficionado. And he goes, sit down. And he asked me to sit down.
Oh, beautiful.
And he starts quoting lines from the movie. What? Or from the episode to me. And because I go, it's about gamblers. And I go, dude, every time I'm in a casino, I'm quoting that episode to the dealer. Nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about. He thought it was hilarious. He remembered the lines.
Are you serious?
Dialogue out of
That's amazing.
You know, I gotta say too, Tales from the Dark Side and its follow-up series Monsters.
Yeah,
I really did appreciate for a super low budget.
Series.
I mean, they were very, very low budget shows, and they were. George Romero's company.
Yeah, that's Richard Rubenstein.
Yeah, and they were hit or miss, but they were like a lot of love went into making those on like $10 budget.
Yeah, and I felt like there was a lot of ingenuity involved.
Yes. Whereas for the most part, I thought the Tales from the Crypt, HBO, Steven Spielberg, Robert Zemeckis produced show for the most part. Overproduced, too slick. It didn't have the love for the most part.
I love the Tales from the Crypt series, but I do agree that I will always love it, but over time it feels a bit more dated because it's very 90s.
Yeah.
Yes,
there's a lot of that sort of satin sheet saxophone music in it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, well, we couldn't have gone through the 90s without saxophones.
Well, Tales from the Crypt also depended on the formula of the EC Comics, which was, somebody does something evil and then gets their comeuppance.
Right.
Tales from the Dark Side actually had, they drew on contemporary horror writers and their stories.
Yes.
But that is a very good point that you bring up, James, which is that really is the genesis of, you could go back to horror writers that would write different stories and have these collections, Poe, but when you talk about this kind of format and the wraparound is the host,
right?
That's EC Comics.
Right.
EC Comics is what really, it was the springboard for all of these things.
Yeah, EC is the coolest stuff. But here's the thing, I will say the worst episodes of Tales from the Crypt can't hold a candle to the worst episodes of Tales from the Dark Side or Monsters. I mean, when they missed on those shows, it was...
Yeah, they
would be like, my brother's the personality of my computer now.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. It was like, no, you can't argue that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were super low budget, but
there was almost like a regional theater doing their TV show.
Yeah, I think they were shot in New York too. They were shot on the East Coast. They got some interesting, guest stars and stuff. I mean, it was just when you're grown up and you're starved for good horror and like you just find those shows. It's kind of when they're good, they're fun.
But now speaking of Tales from the Crypt. Were you a fan or are a fan of the old Amicus films, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, House That Dripped Blood?
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt and from 72.
Yes.
The movie, which has that great poster. Right?
Well, with the eye and the skull.
Which it was on a Famous Monsters magazine.
Yeah,
issue.
Which was so creepy to me.
And believe it or not, I remember going to the theater as a kid and seeing that poster, and it freaked me.
It's so
cool,
weird.
As cool as it was, I was actually too scared back in 70 to see it.
It's a scary trailer.
It is a scary trailer, and I think we went to see Dumbo or something instead. but
which was terrifying.
No. I wasn't into Woody Allen like others here at the table.
It's a running gag.
It's a running gag. But Tales from the Crypt it's really cool. Because
it's a great movie.
I mean, it's.
Have you seen this?
Oh yeah, no. I own the double disc.
Oh yeah, with that and Vault of Horror.
I mean, if you think about it, it has a lot. Some of the actors in there are pretty big name
people.
Top
notch.
I mean, that's Sir Ralph Richardson.
So Sir Ralph Richardson is the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, but you see, that's the funny thing. This is but after he was made a Sir, because I think it's in the credits. But then you have
that's what you have to do to get the Sir.
Yeah.
You have to appear in an EC Comics movie.
I don't know if you guys remember, but you have a very hot Joan Collins. Now, it's like people go, Joan Collins.
Hey, you know what?
When you see that movie, and you see her, first of all,
she was never hotter.
No, she was so sexy in that. And actually, the cool thing about that I think the sequence takes place. She wants to kill her husband.
Killer
right?
Santa Claus episode.
No.
She kills her husband.
Yes, right.
And then on the radio, it says that there's a guy that's left, an insane guy out there, and he's dressed up as a Santa Claus, which is so
and
cool.
And her daughter, Chloe Franks, little.
It's like, when is Santa Claus coming?
Let's admit. But what's so cool is when you look around that room, it's like watching Mad Men, in a way, because it looks so cool.
Well, this was like Amicus, which Amicus really kind of hit pay dirt. In their first anthology film was Dr. Terror's House of Horrors with Peter Cushing.
And what year? Peter Cushing, Donald Sutherland.
Yeah. Yes.
What year?
Young Donald Sutherland in it.
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's the one that started the whole ball rolling. It was a surprise hit, and Amicus then went on to make
Torture Garden,
House That Dripped Blood, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, From Beyond the Grave. They
Another
were just
good one.
riding
I have
high.
that on 16 millimeter.
And Sean, I think they used a lot of the same actors in a lot of these.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, a lot of the same directors. Freddie Francis directed most of them, and they were really fun, clever
Roy
movies.
Ward Baker.
Yeah, and Richard Matheson, I think. Robert Bloch.
Robert Bloch did a lot of them. Well, that's Asylum, which is all his stories.
Asylum's great.
And
we're going to talk about Asylum too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But,
Asylum starts with the one with the invisible tiger story, right?
Yes, Mr. Tiger.
Yeah.
The little kid who's like kind of like the parents don't believe him. They're gonna put him away like this invisible tiger.
That is a great idea for a horror story. I'm stealing steaks,
wait.
from my invisible friend.
Wait, we're talking about Asylum, that 1972.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, I take it back.
No, I'm sorry, you got the wrong movie.
You're right.
You got Tales That Witness Madness.
Tales that
Demon Booze has got you too,
which is not
because the Asylum in '72 doesn't have that.
Yes, and actually Tales That Witness Madness is not an Amicus film.
movie. That's right.
It was an Amicus wannabe.
Yes, which is a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's okay.
It's Mr. Tiger.
I
enjoy it, though.
I like the tiger one. I also like the killer jealous tree.
It's with Joan Collins.
Yeah,
Joan Collins.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah, we should also mention that
So we come back to Joan Collins.
The Killer Santa Claus in Tales from the Crypt might have been the first Killer Santa Claus in cinema history.
I think it was.
I think you're right.
I think you're right.
And all those stories, by the way, are from the EC Comics.
They are
Yes,
from EC
you're
Comics.
right.
What I like about those original movies is they, and probably partly out of necessity because they were cramming 5 or 6 into one movie, they really just followed the comics, point A to point B.
Yeah.
I love the one about the guy that loves all the kids in the neighborhood.
Oh, that's with Peter Cushing.
With Peter Cushing, one of my favorites.
It's heartbreaking.
Arthur Grimsdyke.
Well, heartbreaking. So Joe, tell us what happens in that one.
Do you remember the young kid, young rich kid because he won't sell his house
across the street?
It's like a asshole guy and his snobby dad.
And starts saying the guy's molesting the kids, and then
all he does is do nice things for these kids in the neighborhood.
I know.
Fixes their toys, and
so he convinces Peter Cushing's boss to fire him, and then tells the neighbors.
Peter Cushing doesn't play the old man.
No, he does.
No, he does.
No.
He does. He does. No. He does. He does play the old man. You know why? You know why? You know why? Look, clown. Look what I got right in front of me.
Clown.
This is
he's
the
never
figure.
like this.
Yes,
Wait a minute.
This is the guy. Yes.
Peter
Peter
Cushing from Star Wars.
Yes.
Peter Cushing from Star Wars.
Grand Moff
Yes.
Tarkin. Yes.
He does not. We can look
He
this
does.
up.
He does.
Look it up.
He plays Arthur Grimsdyke. He's the kindly old man who kills himself.
Who then becomes the zombie.
Yeah, comes back and tears the guy's heart out.
And the reason why, wait, the reason why, and one of the last things this guy does, the evil guy does, is he sends all these nasty Valentines that say, roses are red, violets are blue, you're stinky, go.
Why don't you go die?
Yeah. And he's and Peter Cushing is so heartbroken. He's lost his job. The kids aren't coming. I get these terrible Valentines. I'm gonna go hang myself, and it's so horrible.
Yeah.
And then a year later,
he comes
on the
anniversary.
Back. And what's so great is, when I saw this, I actually saw this on Creature Features back in the 70s, Matt.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember freaking out at this point.
The segment's called Poetic Justice.
Poetic Justice, yes. And what happens is he comes and he attacks this young guy.
Right.
And you're not exactly sure what happens until the next morning. The dad comes down to see what's going on. There's his son dead, and there's this giant Valentine.
No, it's a wrapped up piece of paper.
Well, but and he opens it up, and there is lying.
Wait,
no,
first,
no.
Scrawled in blood is a Valentine.
Yes.
Which is anyone?
I don't remember.
You were mean and cruel from the start. now you truly have no heart.
And heart is actually a physical heart.
Yeah.
It's a physical heart, and it's beating, and it looks...
Yeah.
You know what freaked me out about it, too?
So he's okay.
No, Matt, Matt, no. It's a physical heart that was ripped out of him, and it's sitting there, and it's still beating. And I swear
that's
to
awesome.
God, I swear to God,
I love it.
I think that was a real freaking heart, that they had. Sean, do you remember this?
Yeah, it's
Do you know how hard it is to keep a human heart beating after it's been torn out of your body?
They probably had a little, They probably had a little thing there. What? Do you remember it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a little plastic thing with a straw.
It wasn't a plastic heart, James.
It wasn't a real heart, Larry.
But that's what I'm saying. It was it
might have looked real.
There's a thing called special effects, Larry.
You left out the best part, though.
I left out the best part. Oh yeah, okay. Let's. You got the guy wrong.
Excuse me, our guest is talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go
ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joe. Let me hear it.
You're meeting Kroll from the start. And it says, but the heart is still covered by the bottom of the paper.
Yes, that's right.
He has to keep unfolding it as he's reading it. It says, and then you have no, and he's like, what? And he opens it, the last fold, and then it's the heart.
Now,
and then he goes, oh,
no, we didn't.
That's nice.
But to listeners, if you haven't seen this is from '72.
It's it's one of my favorites.
It is. It's classic. Some things you think, oh, it's kind of. It is really neat, and there's some moments in there that still are creepy today.
Yes.
Well, the whole thing with the blind men. At the end.
That one's awesome. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
He's like a guy who takes over like a.
It's like this military guy who takes over this home for the blind.
Yeah,
because you know how those are all over the place.
Yeah, the home for the blind.
And the military guy has this fierce. He has a fierce German Shepherd. He has like a fierce dog.
He's a military dude, and we gotta, you gotta buck up and do things by the book.
And the dog barks at the blind people.
Yeah, he's a horrible man.
Yeah.
He cuts the heating in the place.
Yeah,
and the
people start dying. Cuts the food.
Yeah.
Why he's in his office eating food.
Yeah, he's eating caviar.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible.
He's taken that money and bought himself a throne.
No, he buys a painting. Do you remember?
Yes. That's right.
Because there's a whole company. The blind guy says, "Why don't you take this painting and sell it and get us some food?" Do you remember that?
Yeah,
that's right. That's Patrick McGee.
It's Patrick McGee,
right?
Who's from
very good
Clockwork Orange.
Clockwork Orange. That's right.
Yeah, I think they're literally delivering his food on a silver platter.
Yeah. It's really fancy too.
But that's a great one, man.
But
really
so what happens, Matt?
What happens is that they decide they're going to get revenge. They take his dog. They lead the dog into a room. They close the door on the dog. Leave him there so he gets really hungry. Then they grab the guy and they put him in a room.
And knock out all the lights.
And they knock out all the lights, and he just hears all this building sound happening.
It's great.
And you're like, what the fuck are they doing? And you see little snippets of them working.
Bits and pieces. You have no idea.
And then the door suddenly opens.
Yeah.
And he's walking down this weird corridor.
Yeah.
And he gets to this corridor, and there's this one area where there's all these razor blades on the side of the wall.
It's thin, though,
and
Matt.
it's super thin. Like a gauntlet. And then so he manages to make his way through this razor blade gauntlet.
Cuts himself a couple times.
Cuts himself a few times, then gets to the end of it. And on the other side, there's a door.
Yeah.
The door opens up. It's his dog.
Who's starving.
And
rabid.
The dog just turns on him.
Yeah.
And he, of course, has to run back down the gauntlet, and then they turn off the lights.
Through this,
and through the razor blades.
Oh, God. It just gives me chills.
And that's how I want to go.
And
it's in my will.
And those blind guys are excellent carpenters to have made that corridor
good work.
being blind.
See, it's funny.
Everything in this home was made by the blind.
And they didn't have money for food, but they somehow.
It's funny you should say that, Sean, because I actually thought these might have been, people who were like construction people or something and lost their sight. So I actually bought it, Sean. I really did.
No, you go with it with the movie. It's really good. It's great.
Wasn't this also the one that there's a woman who her husband dies and she wishes on this thing?
It's kind of a reworking of the monkey's paw.
Yes, because they mentioned this, Sean, but they comment on how if you wish something, you have to be very specific about how you wish it.
Exactly.
And it seems like every wish that she wishes for, it just gets messed up.
Yeah. Basically, she wishes the guy were back when he was already dead.
First, she wishes for a lot of money.
Right.
And then he gets killed in a car accident. And they said, oh, well, we got your insurance. So it's like, oh my God, I don't want money like this. I'm going to wish for him back.
Right.
And then,
but he's
just
dead.
back. They just bring his body back, and now it's just his dead body in the room.
No, she wishes him alive, and he starts screaming immediately because he got embalmed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
no, but that's the third one. No, she wishes for him back. He comes back, and he's just a corpse.
Yeah.
And then she goes, no, I want him back, alive, feeling. And then he comes back alive, and because she doesn't realize he's been embalmed.
Yeah. Don't they kind of chop him up?
Try to chop him up.
Oh, that's the horrible part.
I just see these are great, and you know what's cool, Matt, about those is they do some of this stuff without showing a lot of creepy stuff. I mean, a lot of
they choose their moments.
They were very graphic. Yeah, they were. No, they were great.
Yeah, and
that's why, like I was saying, I like those original ones a lot for different reasons than I like the '90s series because they really just kind of take it frame for frame, point A to point B. In fact, in the '90s series, the two that were most true to the comic are the newer version of the Santa Claus one, which is essentially
right.
That's right.
Yeah, it's almost like a shot for shot of the one in the '70s, and then it's the Counting Cards episode is almost block by block, frame for frame.
Right.
The comic book, you know. But then there are other ones that are unrecognizable, except outside of the title or something.
Right.
Now you had mentioned Asylum, by the way.
Yeah, Asylum
was another one from '72.
Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho.
He wrote all of them, didn't he?
He wrote Asylum. Yeah. One of the talking about chopping up bodies. The first episode or the first segment of Asylum was called Frozen Fear.
No, wait a minute. But what happens in Asylum is so this doctor,
the wraparound segment, right? It's a great wraparound idea. Right. New doctor to an asylum. He's invited to this sanitarium for the job.
Yeah, he's going to take over.
Okay, I'll tell you what. You get the job if you can tell me. Oh, no, he says the doctor himself that you're replacing.
The main doctor he's replacing.
Went insane.
Which one of these people is it?
And he's actually now an inmate.
And I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
It was a really great idea. And then you get to their first story.
Well,
You don't like that, Matt?
Don't you?
Which one?
Take it easy. Take indoor voices.
I never saw Asylum. In fact, I just put it on my Amazon wish list because
you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. It's good. It's good.
I
But
thought
the
it was
idea.
Tales that Witness Madness, and I was like, I should get this. But now, when we made that distinction earlier, I was like, oh god, I've never seen.
No, this is a different one.
Right.
Yeah.
No, Asylum. The first segment is this wife who's kind of into voodoo and spiritualism.
Yeah.
The husband decides to knock her off
because he's got a mistress.
And the mistress
is going to say, okay, we're going to go
granted,
off.
The mistress is really hot.
Yeah,
she is.
Of course.
And of course, he has to give her the body of the wife he just killed. So he chops her up
into pieces,
wraps up the body parts, and puts it in a freezer.
Butcher paper. And
butcher paper, and ties it up. And puts it all in the freezer.
And then something happens to him. And then the mistress comes to meet him at the house, and she gets terrorized by basically the moving body parts of the wife, because the wife had this necklace that was controlled like the essence of life.
Yeah.
So if you wore this necklace, you would always be alive. So all of her body parts, her leg, her
torso,
arm, her head were alive.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But
and you
fun.
see all the arms are like grabbing him, and there's like you see the head at one point, and you see like the head breathing.
It's breathing through the wrapping paper.
Yeah.
It's so. That's why I was thinking. There are elements in that it really is. It creeps you out.
It's really creepy.
Even though it's like, well, it's from the 70s.
But I do. I the only thing I have a problem with is that like you'll get the position if you can figure out which one of the people who ran the asylum went insane.
No. But
maybe I'll just work at a different asylum.
No,
maybe.
I bought it. I totally bought it.
Most, if not all, of the Amicus productions were produced by Milton Subotsky.
Yes.
And back in 1980, I was reading a lot of Stephen King. I just read Night Shift, the short story collection.
Yeah.
I mean, most of those stories were made into movies at one point or another. But they had a big influence on me. And I remember reading in a Famous Monsters, I think it was the one that had Saturn III on the cover back in 1980.
Know it well.
That Subotsky was going to produce
I have it memorized.
an anthology of Stephen King stories.
Oh, wow.
And I got really excited because one of them was The Lawnmower Man. Which I thought, how the hell are they going to adapt?
Yeah, that's weird.
5 years went by. They never came out with the movie. And I was in NYU Film, and I couldn't come up with an idea for a short movie. So I thought of that one, and I said, okay, let me do it. I adapted a faithful version of it. And at that time, I guess still, Stephen King had a program called Dollar Babies where you could buy the rights for $1. You just couldn't sell the movie anywhere. So I did that with Lawnmower Man. I sent him a check for $1. And he let me make the movie. And about a year later, I got a letter from Milton Subotsky.
Really?
Reminding me that even though I got the rights for $1 to make the movie, that I could not make money off it.
What?
I have a letter from Milton Sabatsky.
Wow. That's really cool.
What a sweetheart. What a nice man.
That's amazing.
That's my Milton Sabatsky story.
Wow. So,
how did your Lawnmower Man movie turn out?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Love to
We've
see
never
that.
seen that.
Awesome. Well, it's the movie that finally did come out from New Line was so unfaithful that
right.
My movie's a 12-minute, 16mm, and you can tell it's a student film, but only because it was faithful and no one else bothered to adapt it.
Right.
How come we've never seen this?
Yeah.
I thought we were friends.
Yeah.
I guess. I
what
are you afraid of?
I'm a little embarrassed by it, but
by your nudity,
the
nudity in it.
I did get a good cast because the guy who I looked out with the cast.
Joan Collins.
The guy who played the Lawnmower Man. You remember Woody Allen's Radio Days?
Yes, I do.
I'm not familiar with Woody Allen.
I just watched it last night. No,
the guy who gets fresh with Diane Weiss in the car, and then the War of the Worlds comes on, and he runs out of.
Yes,
he played the Lawnmower Man.
Really?
He did it.
Wow.
One of these days, I'll bring it over.
Yeah. Should post it on Facebook.
I also just recently got Night Shift, and I haven't finished it yet, but I read a lot of it. But the first story I read was Lawnmower Man, and the only thing I had ever seen was the movie. And I remember opening the book and being like, how did they tell this? And I started reading it, and it was like this guy looking for a lawnmower man. I was like, oh, I get it. Like that like kind of slow guy is going to come cut his lawn. And I was like, but this guy's not a scientist. What's happening?
Yeah.
There's about 30 seconds in that feature film that has anything to do with the story.
Wow.
Well, and wow, you're just reading that book for the first time?
Night Shift?
Yeah. Oh, it's really a great book.
Yeah, no.
Those stories are amazing.
There's some awesome stuff in it. I had the other one. What's the one with the monkey on the front? Graveyard Shift?
Skeleton
Crew.
Crew, yeah.
And that one I had since I was a kid, and that one has some really
there's some great stuff in that too.
I got Night Shift. It was like $5 or something.
Yeah. Night Shift is so great.
Yeah.
Better than Nightmares and Dreamscapes came out later, but an anthology series was produced out of Australia called Nightmares and Dreamscapes.
Really?
They produced one of the Night Shift stories called Battleground.
Yeah.
With William Hurt. And
they
did a really good job on it.
Wow.
Do you know that, Sean? Mr. Encyclopedia?
No, I don't.
No? Oh. Chalk went up for James. Oh.
There's a lot of good people in it. Tom Berenger's in it. And William H. Macy is in probably the best episode.
Really?
I forgot
As
to
always.
put it on my list, but I own those DVDs, and the Battleground episode is great. And it's not a great series, so I kind of started skipping around. I liked the William H. Macy one, but I want to go back and watch the Tom Berenger one because I didn't realize they did the Road Virus Heads North on it. Yeah. And I read that story and loved it, and then I was like, this is just a great story. And then I went back and looked at the DVDs, and I was like, holy shit, they did this on here, and I've never watched it.
It's a strange story to adapt, too.
Is it a good
What
adaptation?
is that story?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that one.
As it gets.
Tom Berenger plays a horror writer, I believe, and he's traveling north to visit his aunt or something, and he stops at a yard sale and he sees this painting that he really likes of a blonde-haired kid, like sort of a greaser in a convertible, red convertible, and he is drawn to it in this mysterious way, whatever, and he buys it, and it's sort of there's something ominous about it. And as his day goes on, strange events start happening. The picture starts changing. The figure in the picture is getting like further and further away, which in reality is closer to him. Everybody he's coming in contact with is being murdered by somebody. So it's almost like this guy in the painting is following him and murdering everybody he interacts with.
Interesting.
And then it ends with like him in his house and he hears the car come up and it's the convertible and the guy comes up and kills him. It's
a little like The Dark Half.
Yeah.
Maybe
But that sounds creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great story. How was the adaptation? Was it good?
Not bad.
Not bad.
Now, of course, Night Gallery.
I was just going to say that.
Not in the same. Clearly not in the same league as the Twilight Zone, but the pilot movie, the TV movie,
it's great.
is really great.
Yeah, it's great.
And it reminds me of there's that
Changing painting.
the painting with Roddy McDowell.
Yeah.
We may have mentioned that on a different episode, but that's the one thing I loved about that show. First of all, you had the great Rod Serling, introduce all of these pieces, and he brings out the painting, and they talked a little bit about painting, then it goes into it, and I think we mentioned this before. Somewhere there's got to be like a warehouse full of all of these Night Gallery paintings.
Yeah, where are those? those.
And some of those are so freaking creepy. I would imagine maybe they're in a bunch of like private collectors places, but
my dream, I swear to you, like one of my dreams is that I can get to a point of success where I can buy one of those paintings and give it to my friend for Christmas.
Whoa!
Like if I ever got to the point where I could do that, it would be like the greatest thing I ever did.
Why would you want to give it to your friend?
Because he thinks about others, Larry.
Oh,
see, there are these things called human emotions.
No, I have human emotions. I'm just saying, I'd like to keep that in my living room.
2 paintings.
Two paintings, of course.
My favorite night gallery, if I may.
Yes, please.
My two favorites are. I love the one with John Astin and Phyllis Diller.
Oh, that's a crazy one.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that one is so awesome.
And what happens in that one?
It's like I'm gonna screw it up. It's kind of like her heaven is his hell or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he kills her, but then he realizes, and her voice is sort of haunting him or whatever. And then she realizes he's also dead, but he's in hell for killing her.
Yeah, so he has to listen to her for eternity.
Yeah, he has to listen to his nagging wife for eternity. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's great.
that's a great one.
But the best one though is Big Surprise. Which is the one?
That's funny. That's a good one.
Which one is
it's a very short one.
It's a short one. John Carradine.
Yeah, John Carradine is like the stay away from old man Creepy's house or whatever. He's a ghoul
and
or whatever.
These, like kind of brat kids.
Yeah.
And he says they finally interact with this guy, and he goes, "I'll tell you what, you want to snoop around, whatever." He's like, "You walk 16 paces this way and whatever, and you start digging under this tree." And he goes, and you'll find a big surprise. And they start digging, and slowly but surely all the kids fade out, and they're like, there ain't nothing down there. You're digging for nothing stupid. And they all run out, and this one kid is like, I'll keep the treasure all for myself.
Yeah. Young Larry Strothe.
That actually would probably be me.
And then it's, it's pitch black now. They started shoveling at like 10 a.m. or something. Now it's pitch black, and like he finally hits this thing, and he's like, woo, it's going to be a treasure. And it's a door, and he opens it, and then John Carradine walks out of the door, and he goes, surprise. And he starts laughing.
Like it makes no sense, but it's like crazy.
Like, you don't know what he's going to do something terrible to him.
But it's great. It's almost it's like a Halloween maze gag. Almost.
I love that one.
Yeah, that's a great one.
I showed that to a girl on a date once.
How'd that go?
I remember she just went, that's it? That's fucking stupid. I remember
I was into that date.
And that's when you have to whip out based on a true story.
Either that, or if it's not going well, you whip out interiors.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right.
Okay.
Did you ever see the Vincent Price one where he's like he's teaching the college course?
No, that's Carl Reiner.
The Lovecraft one? No, that's
Carl Reiner's the Lovecraft one.
Mrs. Lovecraft sent me.
Yeah.
The androids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wait, that's Night Gallery?
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember that one.
That's where you don't know the robots right away.
Okay,
right?
so what's that one then? With Vincent,
that's a hard one to describe, too.
So it's
very hard to
It's with
describe.
Vincent Price.
Yeah, and he's this college professor, and everything seems fine and well.
Yeah.
And then they start their final oral exam, and the tests he's putting them through are very strange. And they're like harshly racist and
like personality assessments. Like describe your classmate. He's arrogant. He's privileged. He's
like all the teachings and lessons are geared towards negativity and being a bad person. Right.
Yeah. Respond the way you think you should respond, and they slap the guy.
Yeah.
Then I think at one point he's like, take this gun and kill your classmate or whatever, but then in the end you find out they're all androids.
Well, he can't. That's the end. He goes, but it would be wrong. It would be wrong.
It's called something like Class of 1999 or something like that.
That's what it's called.
Yeah. It's like the future is going to be all amoral androids. Yeah,
and I might have mentioned this one before, but I do. Yeah. I don't know why it always sticks with me.
Night Gallery episode.
It's a Night Gallery episode, and it's the one with. This is John Astin, and he's a hippie, and he dies, and he's waiting in the waiting room to hell.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, man, I'm going to hell. Oh, and then he starts imagining it, and it's like Hieronymus Bosch paintings, and he's like, oh, man, far out. And then he goes into this room, and there's this old man and like a couple that are showing slides of their vacation. And it's like, hey man, what do you think about the Beatles breaking up? I got Beatles in my yard and I don't know what to do about them. And like, oh man. And then they start showing their slides of their, and
he's hating it.
Yeah, and he's like, I want to talk to the devil. Devil shows up. What's the problem? He goes, I don't want to be talking to these nerds and all.
He says, where's the flame?
Yeah, where's the flames?
Yeah,
where's the fire and brimstone? He goes, oh, no, this is hell. He goes, well, what are these people? This is their heaven.
Yeah. That was a good episode. I remember that one, Matt.
Did you ever see the... Because Night Gallery also did an episode about a comedian with Scatman Crothers that was awesome.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Big fan of Scatman Crothers.
Yeah.
Big fan.
And the Scatman Crothers one is terrible, but everybody...
It's not Scatman Crothers.
Oh, but I'm a big fan of Scatman Crothers.
You're right.
It's, what the fuck is his name? It's Watermelon Man. It's,
and in case you're joining us, our topic today is horror anthology.
Smoke him if you got him.
Horror anthology.
It's, what's his name?
He was also in Beware the Blob.
Yeah. It's,
I know that guy.
Yeah.
Shoot.
And he was a comic, too.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Godfrey Cambridge.
Oh,
you're a genius.
Oh, James GONIS. Ooh,
Godfrey
top
Cambridge.
SHAWN SHERIDAN, number 2.
The whole time I thought that was Scatman Crothers.
Yeah. And he
similar
all
guys, right?
Well,
or am I just remembering it wrong?
No,
it's okay.
Especially back then, yeah.
Scatman Crothers. I'm sorry. Godfrey Cambridge was a comic at that time, and so it made sense that they
kind of at his height. Back then.
He was in Son of Blob, I think.
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
But I love that one, and he's like this comic.
He's the worst comic ever, and he just wants to be funny. He makes a wish that he can be funny, and then everybody laughs at everything he says, and it's like hell on earth or whatever for him. But they did a Twilight Zone one in the 80s where it's the guy from the guy that plays like the antagonist in Rhinestone.
Wow.
You mean the audience?
Oh man.
He's in he's like one of those 80s bad guys that pops up. So he plays a comic and he's like killing on this Tonight Show style thing with this bit about like a banana where he's like pretending to be a monkey eating a banana.
Yeah.
And you find out after that he stole the bit. And he's like, oh, come on, man. That guy wasn't doing nothing with that bit. And then he dies. And he thinks he's in heaven. And, like, he's got to perform. And he goes on stage. And he's doing, like, all these bits that always kill. And they're all bombing. And he's yelling at the audience.
No, that was Tim Thomerson.
Tim Thomerson. That's
Tim Thomerson.
Yeah.
Tim Thomerson.
It was Take My Life, Please.
Yes. He's doing all these bits, and they're all bombing, and he's getting really mad at the audience.
Yeah.
And then he starts, like, revealing all this stuff about his real life.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you're just like my ex-wife. That's why I punched her in her face. Like, and he starts saying all this crazy shit that he did. And then they're dying. And he's like, what's wrong with you people? That's not funny. That's sick.
And then they're laughing even more.
Yeah, and that's his job now is he has to do, like, 10 shows a night, like, going up on stage just talking about what a horrible person he is as everybody laughs.
Yeah, throughout eternity.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great.
Now we've touched base.
What's that room pay?
So we've touched on
comic joke.
We've touched on a lot of these, like so Asylum, Tales from the Crypt, Creepshow. But there was one a long time ago.
Well, the Granddaddy.
It was actually, if I remember correctly, it was one of Forrest J. Ackerman's favorite films. Forey, who did, it was editor of Famous Monsters magazine, and that was Dead of Night.
Yeah.
1945.
From 1945.
Ealing Studios?
Yeah,
Black
I
and
think
white.
so, yes.
And this is like right at the end of World War II. And it isn't a really interesting anthology. Whereas I'm trying to remember, Sean, because it was a while ago when I saw it. I actually saw it at the Egyptian Theater. This is like something like 10, 15 years ago. I haven't seen it. It's a hard film to find. You can't.
I think
you can't. It's like you can't just type it in and watch it on YouTube or something. I mean, it's kind of difficult to find.
I think it's out. I think like Criterion.
Yeah, I think it's on a Criterion.
Yeah.
But it has one of the greatest, creepiest moments in it.
I've never seen it because every time I've tried to look for it online, the DVD is like $200.
Yeah,
I've never seen it.
But Dead of Night, if you every once in a while in LA, they have a screen of it.
And Turner Classic Movies sometimes will run it too. I look for
What's the creepiest moment?
Well, the most famous moment is the it's one of the first ones to do the evil ventriloquist doll.
Yeah,
Michael Redgrave.
Right. Yeah.
Always great.
Yeah,
and you can't go wrong with it.
The doll's name is Hugo, and just that name scares me.
Yeah, and the way they do the puppet. It is not a cheap puppet. It is a very elaborate one, and it actually has like a little fleshy part right where the chin. So it's like you don't see an opening.
Yeah,
which is so freaking creepy.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing it in a theater like 10 or 15 years ago, and there's this moment where the puppet actually gets up.
Well,
and,
it's kind of like...
And I got chills all over my body.
I don't know if the puppet physically gets up.
Yes, it does.
No, he does. He does.
You see it.
He does. Take that.
Really?
The whole idea of like the ventriloquist who thinks his puppet is alive and controlling him, that kind of almost became a cliche after a while. But this is one of the first times.
This is one of the first ones that they
the whole
did
like,
this.
he's like,
I'm a sucker for it every time.
Yeah, me too.
Twilight Zone did it twice.
Yes.
Both
are great.
Yes.
I was
But this one, Joe, if you get a chance to see this one, it is terrific. It's one of the 4 or 5. I forget how many stories.
It's the last story.
I think that's the last story.
It's the strongest.
6 stories in there.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this one of the first ones where the wraparound is that everyone's dead, or?
Well, the wraparound is I forget the actor's name, but he kind of like crashes this kind of.
He just shows up at this party.
Yeah, and he said that he's seen
I've
premonition.
Seen you. I've seen your
He's had this premonition or dream of like killing somebody, and then everybody starts to talk about their stories.
That's dealing with the supernatural or something.
Yeah, and that's how we get into each segment.
And then what do you find out at the end?
At the end, it turns out he ends up killing somebody, I think. Or something
but let's not give too much away, because I'd love to encourage you to see it, because it's one of those ones that I've loved all the Abacus ones, but this one really, really surprised me. Being made in 1945, it's really a great one.
If I can ever get my hands on a copy, I'd
You know
love
what?
to
I
see
can
it.
send you a copy.
Oh, thanks.
Cool.
Yeah, no, he's the king of finding things that no one else can.
Thank you. That's awesome. I love it.
Let me ask you, when it comes to modern anthologies, what have you guys seen? Like the VHS films or ABCs of Death?
I've seen the VHS series. I'm not a fan of it.
I saw the first one. It's okay, but
those are hit and miss. But there is one, and it's actually not even the best of those films.
Right.
But it's the third one. It's called VHS Viral. And there is a story that is so weird and creepy. And it's about this guy who is, I think it's a Spanish film, I'm not sure. But this guy is an inventor. He creates this portal into an alternate universe. And on the other side, his alternate self has also done that. So as soon as this thing works, right on the other side is himself. Like, oh my God, we did this. It worked. And
they both just happen to be videotaping all of it.
Right.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Well, I always have to go with that. Yeah. No getting around that one.
Right.
They're narcissists, like up the yin yang.
Yeah.
But so they go, well, wow, this is so interesting. Tell you what, why don't we trade places and explore worlds? We'll come back here in 10 minutes.
Right.
And, we'll trade notes. So they do that. The guy from our universe goes into this world, and it is hell on earth. There is a blimp with like an upside down crucifix.
No.
And, this demonic voice being broadcast from this blimp. He goes to his house. His wife is doing some strange ritual with a bunch of naked men. And he finds out her genitals are like tentacles, these weird man-eating tentacles.
Man.
And then you cut to his reality, and that husband is going after his wife with this giant, monstrous shark cock with teeth.
Oh my God!
And I was like, I think I love this. I think
Now the wife part. How was that on video?
They wanted to record their experience in the opposite world.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought to put down.
I still don't even buy that, but you got to just go with it.
It's
some of these things.
I'll go with that.
So Matt, what's this one again? This is
VHS Viral.
VHS Viral.
I believe the story is called Parallel Monsters.
Huh.
Wow.
Okay.
And crazy, weird, and with a great ending.
Okay.
I want to also mention Trick or Treat.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy.
Now that's
It's
a more
great
that's a more recent one.
Yeah, it's a great Halloween anthology film.
Yeah, Trick or Treat's not a bad one.
Oh, and they
Yeah,
actually,
it's got heart. There's
actually a toy figure, I think. Of
Yeah,
some
the
of
little demon pumpkin guy.
Yeah,
But I like the way they interweave the. It's one of those first films that kind of did like crossover the stories. You kind of go back and forth in time. It works though.
I'll tell you that the pumpkin guy's name is Sam because it's based on Sam.
Nice.
Sam Hain.
Yes.
Right. But my major criticism. It's a good movie. It's not. I'm not shitting on it. But they almost interweave the stories so much that it doesn't feel like an anthology anymore to me. I wanted it to be a little more Pulp Fiction-y. where things are intertwining, but each story is sort of living on its own.
Right.
They're jumping back. I'm just like, well, this is just a story that has 4 storylines going versus like
it was at times
it's Magnolia.
It is. It does have a little bit of the too clever for its own good quality about it sometimes, but I do love the spirit of. They really capture the Halloween spirit well.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the Paul F. Tompkins joke about Magnolia? Because he was.
I might have. Please refresh me.
He was supposed to be in the movie. His part got cut out, but he talked about when he went to the table read, and he goes, they did the table read at P.T. Anderson's house, and he goes, and I get there, and his assistant's like, "Did you read the script?" And he's like, "No," and she's like, "Oh boy, right?" You know. And he's like, so now he's like panicking because he's like he has to sit next to Tom Cruise, and he's lost and everything.
Right.
And he goes, she hands me a script the size of the phone book. And he goes, I don't know if you've ever seen Magnolia, but it's a movie about where everybody in the phone book starts talking to each other. Funniest description.
That is hilarious. Yeah. That's great.
You know, we talked about a lot of these, and there's just so many. But I do want to point out before, because I just want to say one of my favorites is actually from television. And maybe of the 3 stories, the 2 of them may not be this strong, but the third one is just such a dynamite, and that's a Trilogy of Terror.
Of course,
from 1975.
Yeah.
Richard Matheson, who wrote the stories, and the lovely Karen Black, who, she does these 3 stories.
She really carries the whole movie.
She does. She does, Sean. And the third one, the last one, if listeners haven't checked this out, I strongly recommend it. It's really terrific. It was made for television.
Yeah.
And at the time, I remember in the TV Guide, it actually had like a little ad that actually had a little article about it. And you see Karen Black in this pink robe, and there's this little brown, looks like doll, like chasing her or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks so incredibly cool. Yeah. And you got to get through these first 2 stories to get to this one, but it's called Amelia, where she goes out to get she has a boyfriend who's into anthropology, and she picks up this Zuni fetish doll. It's like a little African tribal thing with a little spear, little gold chain wrapped around it.
You get them at Cost Plus.
Well, no. Yeah. Well, actually, maybe you can. I haven't been to Cost Plus in a while.
You should be able to.
But if there's a thing that she opens it up, and it says if the little gold chain, there's a little spirit inside. And be very careful and don't let the gold chain fall off.
Right, like if the gold chain around its waist falls off, it's supposed to come alive.
It's going to come alive.
Release the spirit.
That's just science.
And it's so great. And some of the stuff that they do in this television movie is so cool and was so revolutionary at the time in 75, where you get the perspective of the doll that's actually chasing her. And it's so incredibly cool.
Deal.
Yeah, totally. And actually, there is a great toy that was made. What was the company that did this?
God, I don't remember.
It's so cool. They actually made a toy of the little Trilogy of Terror thing that I'd love to get. Now,
they do a lot with that doll.
Yeah,
they do a lot with that doll. Like the idea, it just goes to show you the level of filmmaking, the care that went into making this TV movie, because they do a lot of easy kind of effects to make this thing come alive and really be scary.
They do.
And I also have a theory about why the other 2 stories in that movie are kind of
Yeah, what is it?
Because I feel like they almost were building to that. Like that sequence, that story
Amelia
is so terrifying.
It is. It's so good.
That you almost have to have the other 2 for television be kind of soft.
No, Matt, I kind of agree with you. I think maybe it was done by design.
Yeah.
Well, but as much as it was a showcase for Karen Black, she's not a particularly sympathetic character in any
of them.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
She's got issues.
Or in most movies.
Kind of an interesting story, though. I heard the story that at the end of the filming, Karen Black was actually given the doll. I guess they maybe had a couple of sad stories, though. Someone broke into her house, but they stole.
It's the same guy who took your Twilight Zone.
Yeah, someone broke
that bastard.
Someone broke into her house and stole only the head. Only the head. So now she, before she passed away, she did auction off the body of the Zuni fetish doll, but somewhere out there is a real Zuni fetish doll head.
Do you know how much the body went for?
Oh, it went for thousands of dollars.
That.
Yeah, but the head's out there, James.
Right. Yeah.
Who I want to listen to our listeners. If you know who has the head,
have the head.
If you had the head,
no questions asked.
You
turn off the lights. You put it on the table.
Send it to Monster Party.
The winner of the auction, because he's the one who paid the thousands of dollars for the body.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. About that.
Yeah, you gotta close with little doll chasing you. You can't follow it.
No.
Right. Exactly.
No.
Dead of Night, as you were saying, closes with
the doll.
Right. It's like Cat's Eyes closes with the little goblin.
Troll,
thing.
Goblin Man. Yeah, the troll.
Drew Barrymore, yeah.
I mean, it's so great. Creepy little dolls.
That's funny you mentioned, because I wanted to mention, Joe, how Creepshow became kind of a sleeper hit.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened the floodgates a little bit, because you had actually a fair number of anthology films that came out in the 80s and early 90s.
Yes. Right.
You had Creepshow 2. You also had
Nightmares,
which was a TV movie at first, and then they released it as
That's right. Dead Time Stories.
Dead Time Stories.
I own Dead Time Stories.
Really?
I enjoy the first segment of that with the witch.
The weird.
Did Gino Romero did 2 volumes of a movie called Dead Time Stories in about 2009?
I heard about that.
didn't know that.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Savini was involved too. They weren't as good as I wanted them to be. But yeah, he did a thing called Dead Time Stories.
Yeah, there's also he had Cat's Eye, which Cat's Eye, I really like the first segment in that one about James Woods trying to quit smoking.
Quitters Incorporated.
Yeah, with Larry King. That's a great
night shift story.
Great.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah, Alan King and James
King,
Woods and my favorite though of the 3 is the second one.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
Robert Hayes.
The Ledge.
I have a hard time watching it.
Good. Yeah,
It makes me sick. I'm afraid of heights.
And that is like what you were talking about with the cutting cards story. That is similar in the sense of it's a man against a man.
Yeah, efficient use of just right.
What's the actor's name who's crawling around the ledge?
Robert Hayes.
Robert Hayes, and then the guy who was Baron Harkonnen.
Kenneth McMillan.
Yep.
So I always looked at Robert Hayes as like the other James Woods.
the nice one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like James Woods is the first one. They're like, well, we want James Woods in this one.
Could you be less of an asshole?
Plus all the TV series anthologies in the 80s. They brought back Alfred Hitchcock. Amazing
Oh,
Story.
Twilight Zone.
Twilight
Right.
Zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we did good here.
We can't forget about From a Whisper to a Scream.
Yes. C. Courtney Joyner.
Yeah.
That's right.
Monster
Party
one of our guests. That's right.
That was a great anthology from the mid-'80s and featured Vincent Price.
Yeah.
That's right.
Another Vincent Price one I enjoy is Monster Club.
Monster Club.
I like Monster Club.
Yeah.
The last segment, especially with Stuart Whitman.
That's the one where he goes like the village or whatever.
And they're like ghouls.
Yeah, and it does that really cool like part with the illustrations of
Yeah,
the history.
that's a good one. That's fun.
That's a cool one, and such a weird with like the monster bands, like the punk
it's
bands.
really, it's like John Carradine and Vincent Price get together at this. It's like a club where they just party in their band. Yeah, it's really bizarre.
Like they have a monster party.
Yeah, it is.
C. Courtney Joyner, he was talking about working on From a Whisper to a Scream, and he was saying one of the advantages of making an anthology movie was that he knew a lot of people who would be trying to produce their feature and they'd run out of money, and then that would be it. Right. But if you were doing an anthology movie, you'd finish a story, you'd run out of money, and then you'd wait. At least you had something completed.
And you could show something.
Yeah.
You could show something.
And get more money to make the next story.
He's a sharp guy.
Smart.
Yeah, it's a very good idea.
Smart.
It was good.
Yeah, I gotta pick up a copy of that one.
It's a good one, yeah.
That is a good one.
But can we go back to Cat's Eye for 1 second?
Yeah.
Sure.
You're our guest.
Thanks. But we were talking about Night Shift earlier. When I got the copy, I think it was over Christmas when I got my copy of Night Shift. I was sitting I remember sitting at the breakfast table with my mom and dad, and I was like, I can't imagine the money Stephen King made off of this one book. Forget every other one of his books was made. The Night Shift book, it's like, I think it's the first 2 stories from Cat's Eye, I believe, are both. I know Quitters Inc. is in it. I think The Ledge is
The
also
Ledge
in
is
it.
too.
You had Lawnmower Man.
Sometimes they come back.
Sometimes they come back.
Children of the Corn.
Children of the Corn.
Graveyard Shift.
Graveyard Shift.
The Mangler.
And all the spin-offs and sequels to all those movies, even if he wasn't involved, he made money off them. I mean, they made
Salem's Lot story is the first story
of
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Jerusalem's
Lot.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's like 9 or 10. Literally, almost every story got turned into something.
Well, when we did that, we did a horror of the '80s episode, and we talked about how Stephen King
ruled
that decade.
Yeah, he did.
mean, you couldn't walk 10 feet without seeing a Stephen King movie.
Trucks is in it too, right?
Which
became Maximum Overdrive,
right?
And then made again as Trucks.
And then again as Maximum Overdrive.
And then as Maximum Trucks.
You know who was in Trucks was the guy from 30-something. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, Peter Schmexmer. Yeah.
When did that come out?
Oh yeah, that's great, Sean.
Ronald Z.
Peter Schmuckschmer.
Eric Blaine.
It was more faithful.
Tyrus Miguel.
Okay.
Demon booze.
Or it was bad in a different way.
I got you. Maximum Overdrive is a fun 80s movie.
It's so ridiculous.
It's fun like the way like Commando's fun.
You know, we could
separate worldviews.
We could go on and on. I mean, there's so many.
Look,
there's
we
so many.
got to mention. We got at least mention by title. We got to mention Tales of Terror.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath. Qui-Gon. Spirits of the Dead.
I mean, what
we could just go on forever.
We're just, we're gonna have to do
another episode of this.
Can we please?
Yes. Joe, we want to have you back.
You've been amazing.
You're delightful.
I want to come back anytime, and when I start my horror podcast, I would love you guys to come in.
We're there.
Of course.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I really mean it. I want to just come hang out with you guys. Really soon.
Oh yeah.
Does your podcast have a title yet?
I think I'm going to call it "I'll See You in Hell" because it's
great.
about. I was saying earlier, it's going to be either me watching horror movies on a green screen and doing a commentary, or me just doing a commentary as I watch it, and then you can download the commentary. I'm not sure which I'm allowed to do or release or whatever. So
we love all of those.
Yeah,
and all of those versions work for us.
It'll most likely be the latter, where it's me and my friend, and not like a funny commentary like. It'll be funny because we're comics, but it'll be a celebration of horror movies.
Will it be informative?
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Right.
I mean,
and that's what this is. That's what the Monster Party is. It's a celebration of all the stuff that we love.
Absolutely. And let's do a quick shout out for ourselves. You can find us on Facebook at Monster Party TV. Find us on Twitter at Monster Party HQ, and find us on YouTube also at Monster Party TV.
Monster Party TV.
And if you're listening to us on iTunes, please take a moment and write a review because it makes us easier to find. Apparently, these things are important.
And we want to know what you think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because some of our stuff I think has been brilliant.
And Joe,
Yeah.
what do you got going? What would you like to plug?
Let's see, upcoming gigs. I have Tulsa, Oklahoma Blue Whale Comedy Festival in June. Flappers, 4 headlining shows. Flappers in Burbank, California in July. Montreal Just for Laughs Festival in July. Outside Lands Festival in August.
And these are all on your website?
They should be. Yeah, they're
Facebook, anything?
Yeah, you can find all these things.
JoeDeRosa.com?
JoeDeRosaComedy.com.
There you go.
Joe DeRosa Comedy on Twitter. I'll announce all this stuff on Twitter as it's coming, and so do that and go buy my albums online, man. iTunes.
We were going to do all of
Amazon,
that.
Absolutely.
whatever.
Starting
Thanks, guys.
now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been awesome.
This has been awesome. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I am Shawn Sheridan.
I am Larry Stroth.
And I'm James GONIS.
Keep America strong.
Watch horror anthology films and TV and other stuff.